We're now in the home stretch of the small deployment installation. Let's assess briefly where we're at so far. In order, we've installed the following products: the AR System Server, the mid-tier, Atrium Core Web Services, BladeLogic Server Automation, Cloud Database Extensions, AR or Atrium Orchestrator, and BMC Network Automation. There are only 4 more installations until we finish. Now we're installing the Platform Manager, one of the last and most important products of BMC Cloud Lifecycle Management. After you install Platform Manager, you can then start installing Cloud Portal AR extensions, the Self-Check Monitor, and Cloud Portal Web Application. Before we begin, there are some prerequisites we should understand. Installing Oracle 64-bit JRE 1.7 is optional. I typically don't install it. I use the embedded JRE instead. If you're using third-party certificates from Symantec or GoDaddy, I think installing an external JRE just confuses the matter. You can install the Cloud Portal web application on the target host, on the Platform Manager target host that is, if you want to use one less VM in your environment. We'll talk more about this in a minute. And if you plan to install the Self-Check Monitor, then you must install the BladeLogic network shell as a prerequisite before you start. Install the network shell as a standalone application. Open Windows Explorer on the installer host, navigate inside the Applications folder into the BladeLogic network shell folder. Copy the setup executable and paste it inside the Platform Manager target host. Then run through the standalone network shell installation. Pull out your planning spreadsheet and let's get started. Installing the Platform Manager is easy, but there are a lot of steps. Here we see that Platform Manager is loaded in the currently installing tree and is ready to install. And we have 3 more applications loaded in the upcoming installs tree. Click Next to continue. Take a VM snapshot of the Platform Manager host and then click Next. Review the destination directory. In the Java information panel, you have 2 choices. You could select the path of the JRE that you installed or use the bundled JRE. Using the bundled JRE makes SSL configuration a lot easier in my opinion. Click Next to continue. Review the AR System server inputs. Review the directory of the Platform Manager configuration files. Review the OSGI settings. By default, you're installing the Platform Manager with the secure HTTPS protocol on port 9443. Theoretically, you could choose HTTP and install on port 7070. In this case, I go with HTTPS on port 9443. Click Next to continue. The Cloud Portal web application is the brand new end user portal that BMC introduced in the 4.5 release. By default, to improve performance, BMC wants you to install the Cloud Portal web application on its own target host. But if you want to or need to use one less VM in the small deployment, we give you the option to select yes and then install the end user portal with the platform manager. But we're going to go ahead and use the defaults here. That is, we're going to install the Cloud Portal web application on its own host and continue with the installation. Now you must either create a self-signed certificate or use a third-party certificate like Symantec or GoDaddy. If you created a third-party certificate, select yes, and then enter the location of the private key, enter the password, and so on. If you do select yes, you must already have created the key store and installed the third-party certificate on the target host. But once again, we're going to head and use the default settings. In the Tomcat Web Server Certificate Information panel, update the information to create a self-signed certificate for your organization. In the common name field, enter the fully qualified domain name of your host under the common name field. Enter your organization unit. Enter your organization name, like BMC Software. Enter the locality. Enter the full name of your state. Enter your country. The password by default is change it, but everyone knows that. So you have the option to create a strong password that can't easily be hacked. Enter a super user password for the login service. You use this super user password during the next installation when we install Cloud Portal AR extensions. Review the Persistence Manager details. Make sure that you select the correct time zone for your environment. Review the core cloud service details. In the Resource Manager, enter the BBNA password. By default, it's sysadmin. Enter the BladeLogic admin password that you created earlier. Enter the BladeLogic guest password that you created earlier. And then enter the Atrium Orchestrator password. By default, it's admin123. And then continue. Review the SMTP configuration details. You now have the choice to configure database as a service. By default, the installer turned this option off. And we're not going to enable database as a service. We're just going to go with the defaults. You can still configure the database as a service later after you finish installing the small deployment. You now have the choice to configure the VMware vCloud Director Provider. Just like the last panel, by default, this option is turned off, and we're just going to go with the defaults. You can still configure the option later after you finish installing the small deployment. It took a long time to get here, but we're now actually ready to kick off the Platform Manager installation. Review all the products and all the versions listed in the installation preview, and then click Install. Installing the Platform Manager takes about 10 minutes or so. Okay, we've successfully installed the Platform Manager. In the Install Summary panel, review the installation log, close it, and then click Done to finish the installation. We're going to continue now by installing Cloud Portal AR extensions.